Welcome to a new episode of Cool Girls Create. I am your host, Tee Westbrook, and I'm here with a very special guest today, Dr. Laquita Stribling. Now, Dr. Laquita Stribling is a powerhouse Black woman based in Nashville, like myself. So we're going to get into some things today. So, Dr. Stribling, let's start off by just giving a brief introduction of, who you are and what you do.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all, for having me today. I'm excited to sit and have this conversation with you. I'm, like you said, Laquita Stribling. I live here in the Nashville area. I've been here since the end of 2002, so a little over 20 years now. I'm originally from Arkansas, and I grew up in a very small community in Arkansas that was primarily Black. And I went on to college to an HBCU, primarily Black. Best days of my life, I might add. And then I got a master's degree from the University of Memphis and a doctorate degree from Trevecca Nazarene University. I've been with a company called Randstad, which is a Dutch-owned company, since 1996. So I'm getting ready to enter into my 28th year, where I currently serve as vice president. I have 10 business units that report into me. So I'm responsible for about $50 million in revenue annually and about 1,200 employees, and hundreds of customers that we work with on a weekly basis. And what we do is help companies solve their people issues by finding them great qualified candidates for the open seats that they have, and we create opportunities for people who are looking for a new or different career opportunity. So that's what I do on my daily basis, but I'm also an independent director with Citizens Bank, which means I serve on their board of directors and I get paid for my expertise. And the lane that I focus on with Citizens Bank is all the people issues. So I handle HR, compensation, succession planning, strategic planning. I also serve on the audit committee. So those things that I get paid to do keep me really busy, and I'm involved with a number of organizations, nonprofit organizations in the city as well.
Man, see what I mean, y'all? She's definitely a powerhouse, and it's just an honor to be able to have this conversation. So as you were talking, there were a couple of things that came up in my mind, like little alarms. So the first thing I want to start with is let's touch on your HBCU experience just a little bit, because I am also a graduate from Tennessee State University, Big Blue.
All right.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay.
But I really like to talk about the HBCU experience, because especially as a Black woman, because I think it was very pivotal to me identifying who I am in this world and having just closer ties to that. So what was your experience like at an HBCU?
So let me start by saying that I went to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff on a full ride athletic and academic scholarship. It's also the same university where my mom and my dad and most of my aunts and uncles went. In fact, I still have an aunt and an uncle who work there on campus. And so while I was heavily recruited and sought after for athletics, even a PWI SEC school to run track for them, I always knew I wanted to go to the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. And I have absolutely no regrets for doing so. Just culturally, it was so enriching. Your professors looked like you in most instances, and they really cared about your matriculation and your success, and cared in such a way that even if you needed that swift kick, they were there to give it. You weren't just another person in a class. And then, of course, the whole Greek life. My athletic life. I was very involved with Student Government Association and the English Club. And so I was very active on campus. So I have lifelong relationships and friendships that I have formed as a result of that. I also got a husband out of it. That's where we met. We've been married almost 29 years now. But I also had the opportunity, we had a very good cooperative education program where they would send you out to different organizations across the country. And if you did well, you were offered a permanent job upon graduation. And so I went to Shadron, Nebraska for 3 semesters, and I taught English at a Job Corps center that was an accredited high school. And what I'm most proud of is that during my tenure as the English teacher, I never had a student to fail the English portion of the GED. And while, you think about people who get a GED for whatever reasons instead of going the normal course of high school, there are a lot of people who could not pass the GED. It is a very difficult test.
Wow.
And so I would often sit in just awe of the brilliant minds that were in Job Corps and wondering, how did you end up here? And so that enriched my life in a way that I got to see that the world was much bigger than the community I grew up in, than the HBCU I went to. And it really helped prepare me for what ended up being my life in corporate America. But let me also back up and say, just last weekend, we buried my college track coach, whom I love dearly and will miss greatly. And aside from my parents, I can't think of an individual who had more impact and influence over my life and who I am today as a professional and as a leader than Coach Ulysses S. Grant. So I'm so grateful and appreciative for my HBCU experience, and I wouldn't have traded that experience for anything. And I feel like I got as much of a quality education there as I would have going anywhere else.
That's interesting, the route that you took and the opportunities that you were exposed to. But when it comes to your track coach, what do you think it was that made the most impact for you? And I ask that because I can also identify, a few teachers in my life through high school that really helped me. Well, they actually exposed me to the idea of being a creator. So my art teacher helped me start a dance team. And then from there, I was introduced to HBCU culture and like the Divine Nine and like, you can have other careers outside of, a 9 to 5. So what was it that impacted you when it came to your coach?
Well, he was a no-nonsense kind of person, but he loved his athletes. Now, he didn't say it, but you knew through his actions that he did because he cared more about us than what we did on the track. He cared about us in terms of what we did outside the track, in the classroom, campus life, what we did afterwards, and even, as much as he cared about what I was doing professionally, as well as what my children were doing, I think he was one of the first people I called when I completed all the requirements for my doctorate, and he was just as proud as I was and as my parents were. But he really developed us as it relates to hard work and discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to speak and share at his funeral last week. And I talked about the hard work and, like Mondays were the worst. So whatever you did over the weekend, he was surely to run it out of you on Monday. We focused a lot on the small things. So in my 4 years of running for him, we never dropped the baton. We never ran out of our exchange zones. We never jumped the gun. And so there may have been some instances where maybe we weren't as talented as another team, but we got them on the techniques. And so we were very, very successful. I remember one year, because of the hard work, because of the discipline, 6 of us went to nationals and got second place.
Wow.
The winning team had over 70 athletes. We had 6. So just about every time, an event came up, we were on the track. And, we were the little engine that could. And we had such great confidence in the preparation, the hard work, the discipline, the confidence, and the determination that he instilled in us, that we knew we could take on the world. We knew the odds may have been against us, but we went out there and we performed, and we came away runner-up in a national track meet with 6 athletes.
So I'm sure that the answer is yes, but do you believe that being an athlete impacted your professional career? Because I'm hearing common themes. I'm hearing hard work and perseverance and technique. So how did that translate, like being an athlete, to your career?
And my answer would be absolutely, unequivocally. I do think, because I think to be successful, whether you're an entrepreneur like yourself or me in corporate America, you have to have that grind and grit. You have to be able to take the hard knocks, get up, dust yourself off, and let's go again. I find myself oftentimes quoting things he would say to us, like, don't be on time, be early. And so I am rarely late. And if I'm running late, I have the highest level of anxiety because I'm going to be there 10, 15 minutes early. And then, like, if you fall short somewhere or make a mistake, he would always say, it's your nightlife. And so I find myself saying it to my kids sometimes. And he would say, everybody can't be a doctor. Major in something you can graduate in. And so it's all those little cliche of things that he would say that have helped to shape me to the point where I reported to the same gentleman with Ronstadt for 24 years. And I remember he and I were having a one-on-one one day, and he asked me, he said, so let me guess, did you anchor the 4x1? And I was like, yes. He said, I can tell in how you assume responsibility. And so truly, when you anchor a relay, it doesn't matter what happened the 3 legs before it got to you. It's your job to bring home the bacon. And that is truly how I have lived my life as a professional, how I have lived my life as a leader, in that, no time for blame. We got to get the job done, and making sure that I'm on my A game to do the very best I can do to successfully affect the outcome of the team. And so it was interesting in that, in just his observation, he was able to tell, some correlations between my experience as an athlete and the way that I led in business.
Wow. And this is a perfect segue, though, for us to talk about your professional career. So the other question that I had was, are you where you thought you would be? So meaning, when you were in college, what was your major? And did you take the career path that you have stuck to for the last 20 something years?
Absolutely not. So I went to college to be an English teacher. Most of my aunts and uncles are educators. So I thought I wanted to be an English teacher. I loved writing. I loved everything about English. I mean, I can't turn it off in my mind. If I see a grammatical error, I'm correcting it in my mind. If I hear something that's not right grammatically, I'm correcting it in my mind. So that's what I plan to do. And so I took a lot of, I went the education route, but then I also took a lot of business classes because I found those to be intriguing as well. So toward the end of I did everything toward English education, but student teach.
Mm.
And I think maybe the last semester I decided, I'm not sure that I want to teach. And sadly, because the earning potential just isn't there, sadly. Like you've said, and I've said, some of the greatest influences on who we are today is as a result of interacting with some teacher, some educator somewhere. And it's a shame that in our society, we don't treat our educators and compensate them better than we do. So then I decided, well, I think I'm going to go to either law school or grad school. So I ended up that I'm going to go to grad school and maybe I'll do something in government. So I majored in public administration with an emphasis in human resources. So over the course of graduate school, I started really liking the human resources aspect. So as I was finishing up taking my comps for grad school, I did an internship at Jackson State Community College in Jackson, Tennessee, in the HR department. And one of my peers in that department had a friend who had started working with Ronstadt in Memphis. And she was talking about how great this company was, how progressive they were, and how much her friend enjoyed working for this company. And I said, wow, that sounds like a lot of the companies we've been studying in my graduate program. And, one thing about if you live long enough, you'll get to see how many steps of your life were orchestrated by God. And a few weeks later, Ronstadt had an opening. I applied, and I've been here for almost 28 years now. And I don't know a single person in recruiting and staffing who set out to do that. Most of us just happen upon it. I don't know anybody who's been doing it, who said that this is always my dream of what I wanted to do professionally.
So what is it that you love about being in the human resources space? Because to me, well, I do have a background from corporate America, so I understand a little bit about what human resources is responsible for. But for someone who just generally hears that word, how would you explain it to them? Like, what is your day-to-day and what do you love about it?
Well, I'm very much an advocate for people. So, and I think I got this from my mom. Like, my mom is very much a person who she can't see a need and not feel some sense of responsibility in helping to do her part in addressing it. So she's always been extremely actively involved in the community. I used to joke with her as a kid because she'd be in meetings all the time. And I would joke with her and say, I think you look for meetings to go to. And here I am every day. I'm in a meeting somewhere. But being an advocate for people, I was really drawn to human resources. So I think it's important, when you think about how do most of us take care of our homes and our families and ourselves, is generally through employment of some type. Maybe for yourself, in my case, in corporate America. And so in the space I'm in, as I mentioned earlier, we solve problems for companies. They have positions that they need filled to run their business. And we take some of the load off by going and finding these people for them. But we also have another customer, our talent. So when people come to us, either they're looking for something new and different, or they're starting their careers. And so what we do is create opportunities. So essentially, we open the door for you. Now, what you make of that opportunity once you get inside, that's on you. But we create the opportunity. So we take people who are looking for a new and different career opportunity, and we marry them to positions that or we bridge those opportunities with companies who are looking for qualified candidates to come and help them do the work that they're in. And so I've just been very intrigued by that. In addition, I have another customer. I have my internal teams. And it's important to me that they thrive, they do well, they enjoy as much as you can enjoy going to work, that they're treated well while they're at work, that we're sensitive to the fact that they're not just employees, but they're also people with lives and dreams and families and sometimes issues. And so I find the complexity of balancing all those things very beneficial. I find them intriguing. I find it very meaningful. It's just a space that I found great joy, and I've been pretty good at it, thankfully.
Yeah. And one thing that I don't hear a lot of people admit this, but I am going to admit it. Coming from, because you hear, like, if you are an entrepreneur and you left corporate America, then there's kind of like this friction there. But for me, I feel that I learned a lot being in corporate America from a structural standpoint, and then hearing you talk about human resources and managing people and understanding that they have lives and hopes and dreams and sometimes issues. I think that's an important point, because that can definitely translate to anyone, whether you are working in a business on your own, managing people for a company, or anywhere in between. So that really stood out to me.
I do think entrepreneurial pursuits has helped me in corporate America. So my parents, my dad in particular, was a serial entrepreneur. I mean, in my lifetime, I don't know him to ever work for somebody else. So my family owns a funeral home in Arkansas. My dad owned a car lot. My dad did bail bonding when I was young. My dad was a minister. So, growing up, seeing the grit and grind and having to sometimes help him with answering the phones, seeing him engage with, from a business perspective with grieving families and all of that, I do think it helped me in corporate America. So I kind of come from a reverse, where I left kind of an entrepreneurial environment growing up to come into corporate America, where most often you probably see people leaving corporate America to go into more of an entrepreneurial type environment.
That is very interesting, because, to be candid, I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to have some type of corporate background, or just like working a job, because you have to see it, like you said, from both sides. And that is a gift, to come from entrepreneurship and go into corporate America, because when I'm thinking about my career earlier on, there are a lot of ways in which, if you take an entrepreneurial approach, meaning taking ownership in whatever it is that you're doing, being accountable, being a self-starter, self-motivated, leadership, that really helps in your career to get you to whatever level or steps that you want to take. So that's very interesting. So let's switch gears a little bit, because there are a couple of other things that I want to touch on. Okay. So the first is, let's see, do I want to go there or there first? Let's talk about your doctorate. So what made you want to pursue the doctorate degree?
So that's interesting. I get that question quite often. In fact, I got that question last night. So I did it. It was a bucket list thing for me. I didn't do it necessarily to do something different, because I don't have to have a doctorate or a master's to do what I'm doing. But I've always been an inquisitive kind of person. I consider myself a lifelong learner. I'm a bit of a nerd. And so for me, it was the quest of attaining the highest level of education. And again, that was such a rich experience in that I learned a lot. I feel like I enhanced a lot of skills and abilities. I built a new network of friends and people, lifelong friends now that I matriculated through with my cohort. But I will tell you, it is probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. And I tell people all the time, getting a doctorate is not about being smart or intelligent. It really is about having the highest level of self-discipline and determination over a long period of time when there are numerous opportunities to just quit.
Mm. I have never heard it framed that way. So what do you think the biggest misconception is when it comes to pursuing a doctorate or having a doctorate?
Well, considering I think less than 2% of the world's population have a doctorate degree, says that, it's not for everybody. It's when I tell you, it's the accomplishment I've had that I'm most proud of because I had to work the hardest to do it. And, for some people, it means shutting down your life to get this done. And that's probably the ideal way to do it, but not me. I had to make it even harder. So anytime my friends would call and say, hey, you want to do whatever? What time? Instead of, some of my cohort friends would say, no, I need to work on my dissertation. Well, I didn't have sense enough to do that. So it took me longer than some others. And I do think the misconception is that you got to be smart to get a doctorate. And I just don't think that's the case. I mean, it helps for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's about that self-determination, self-drive when no one would blame you if you quit.
Right.
And so you have to just keep pushing yourself even when you don't want to. And I remember the moment I decided and had a conversation with myself to say, because I finished the coursework. I'm a nerd like that. That was a piece of cake. I think I had a 3.978 GPA in the coursework. It was the dissertation that it's not enjoyable. I tell people all
Why?
the time, it's because it's not like you're a creative. And when I was an English major, I used to love to write, but it was all this, demonstrative type of writing. That is not what a dissertation is. I tell people all the time, if you ever have a bout with insomnia, go download a dissertation on any topic, and you'll be fast asleep. It's so boring. And so for me, it wasn't the type of writing I enjoyed. So it was almost like every time you have to take some terrible medicine, you just have this angst. And so that was my relationship with my own dissertation. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't have any fun. It's not enjoyable. And I remember the moment I said to myself, this dissertation is not going to write itself. And so I got on the ball. I even took 3-4 days. I checked myself into a hotel. I took my snacks. I told my husband, my family and friends, I'm unplugging and I'm not coming out until I am finished with this dissertation.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to do.
And that's something that is a skill set and something that I think anybody should take with them, because whether you're writing a dissertation or not, or you're in corporate America, or you're going down this entrepreneur creator track, you're going to have to tell yourself that you're going to have to buckle down. And right now I'm in this stage of, it doesn't matter all the time about like how I feel. Like I don't feel like I don't feel like doing this. I don't feel like being consistent. But at some point you have to, take responsibility. Like earlier you said in this conversation, it's not about those 3 legs before. It's like, what is in front of me now and how am I going to deal with it? And I think,
And to your point, the tie back to being an athlete, when you're on scholarship, your coach does not care if you don't feel like it and if you don't want to. You got to go.
right,
Yeah.
right. And that play, because so I was on the dance team. So I wasn't running track, but very similar with like the discipline, the structure. And I don't feel like being at practice. I don't feel like doing these performances, but at the end of the day, you're a part of a team, you have a responsibility. So I think those extracurricular activities really do help shape you as a person. And it's just very, very beneficial to be, I think, more well-rounded. And this makes me think about just transitioning into the next part of the conversation, which is about leadership, specifically women in leadership and women on boards. So when I think about my journey, so currently I'm on two boards. I am on Nashville Cable Board, which is a women's organization, if you don't know and you're listening or watching. And I am on the junior board of the Nashville Business Incubation Center, which focuses on small businesses. But I'm in my early 30s. And to be candid, not even 3 years ago, I had no idea the importance of being on a board, what that means, and how impactful that is to me as a leader. It was just a suggestion that I should join a women's association, and I kind of just got thrown into being a board member. But I like to tell people that being a servant leader is one of the most important things that you can do and be. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your journey. What was your first experience with joining a board? And yeah, let's start from there.
Well, I try to live my life by the scripture, to whom much is given, much is required. And so for me, I feel like my life has been tremendously blessed, and that I have an obligation to look out for those who have not been as fortunate. And when you're starting out in your career, nobody wants you. That's the truth of the matter, because you don't have anything to offer, right? And so I would intentionally raise my hand to do things. And so I would have opportunities to learn and grow. I would have opportunities to network and get to know people, but also so that other people would have an opportunity to get to know me.
Mm-hmm.
And so early on in my career, I was in West Tennessee and Jackson, Tennessee. So I joined two things because I realized that as a leader, even then, that the biggest asset for my team was for me to be able to do things they could not.
Mm.
And so I put myself in a position to be uncomfortable a lot. Because like I said, I grew up in a Black community. I went to an HBCU. And so when you get to corporate America, it's the polar opposite of that. Very often I was the only Black person in the room. And back then I was very often the youngest person in the room. So of course you got to build some credibility, because number one, the assumption is probably you don't have anything to offer. I mean, you're Black, you're young, what are you doing here? And so I joined the Chamber of Commerce, had what was called Red Coat Ambassadors. So we went out to all the ribbon cuttings. So you got to meet the new businesses and you got to engage with people who would attend. And at first it was very uncomfortable for me, because I would have to put myself out there to introduce myself and to give people an opportunity to get to know me. And then I joined Rotary. And I tell you, the moment I joined, I dropped the average age of the club probably like 20, 30 years. Because I was in my 20s. The average Rotarian
Wow.
was probably 50, 60 years old at the time.
So wait, before
And
you go into that, just give a little context about what Rotary is.
okay. So Rotary is an international nonprofit community service civic organization. And around the world, there are over 30,000 Rotary clubs. about 1.2 million Rotarians. So it's the perfect intersection of professional people networking, but also doing community service and addressing community needs. Most notably, Rotary is known around the world for our work in eradicating polio. And we have been very successful in that. We're down to just 2 countries, Afghanistan and Pakistan, where there are still cases of polio. And then in each of our local communities, we have different projects that we work on. So like the Rotary Club of Nashville does, we address literacy, health and hunger. We work with Habitat Humanity. We do a lot of things in the community here in Nashville. So that's Rotary. And so it's, on a worldwide basis, it's a pretty white organization. And so I joined the club in Jackson, Tennessee, and I would sit somewhere differently every week to meet different people. And I could tell sometimes I sat in somebody's seat who would normally sit in that seat. But thankfully, I'm a big football fan, big sports fan. So, one of the ways in which I could kind of break the ice and engage in some conversation is to be able to talk about Sunday's NFL game or Saturday's college football game. And so I was able to build this network to where now, my teams will say, hey, I'm trying to get into ABC company. Do you know anybody? And it's amazing how I can pick up my phone and, yeah, sure, I know whomever, and be able to get some things done that they would not have been able to get done otherwise. So I think that was important for me early on. And I can say now I've had the opportunity to serve on a number of boards, in leadership roles. I ended up going on to serve as president of the Rotary Club of Nashville several years ago, and it's the 3rd largest Rotary Club in the world. I was the 2nd Black person to serve in that role, Francis Guest being the 1st. And there was 20-something years between him and me. I went on to serve as district governor for our local district, and I was the first African American to serve in that role, where I was responsible for 63 Rotary clubs and about 3,500 Rotarians. Each of the boards I've served on, I have really made sure that they are diverse. I have served on a number of boards where we've created matrix to ensure that there's proper representation of Black people, younger people, females. And that has just been the lane I find myself in of getting into good trouble, I suppose, because I feel like truly that, our community, our society, the world is better when we're all better. And so I look for opportunities where I get in the end to look and see who I can bring along with me.
So I want to get really real about this because, and I'm saying this because with Cool Girls Create in this podcast, I bring in women who are creators or have stories to tell, and who are in leadership. But I think it's important to be real about what it takes to lead and to follow your dream or follow the path that either God put in your heart, or you feel is necessary. So when it comes to, being a former president of Rotary, joining boards and being a leader in this capacity at this high level, from your experience or on your opinion, what does it really take to lead at this high level?
Well, I think you can't underestimate the power of connection and networking. Is one attribute. And what I learned in observation is that women and men network differently. Oftentimes I would see women like we kind of gravitate to where we're comfortable. Like, do I feel her vibe? I like her outfit. I like the way she parted her hair. Where men are much more strategic, and I don't want to be I don't want it to seem like I'm being shallow about women. I'm not. I'm gonna come back
No,
and
be
clean it up.
real. Be real. You ain't gotta be politically
Well,
correct here. It's a
but
safe place.
I'm very much a feminist. I'm very much an advocate for
Uh-huh.
for females. But
Mhm.
what I noticed was men were much more strategic in their networking. And it was a little off-putting to me at first, early in my career, because oftentimes when you're in a networking type setting, when men come up and introduce, the first question they'll say is, "So what do you do?" And I was like, "So you're not gonna ask my name or how I'm doing first? Like warm me up a little bit." But what I realized they were doing was really time is money, right?
Mhm.
And so what they were doing, it was trying to calibrate, is there some mutual opportunities here? And if the answer was yes, then okay, they go into finding out more about you, telling you more about them, and really engaging in a deeper conversation. If not, they would exchange a few pleasantries and they move on,
Keep it moving.
right? They keep it moving.
So how do you answer that question? Because this comes up a lot when it comes to networking. So people may see me and think, well, they've said it, it seems easy for you to network. You're outgoing, da 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 da. And what people don't know is I'm an introvert, but I'm strategic. And so I look at things maybe I guess similar to men, because when I'm in the room, I already know, okay, this is who I'm gonna meet, or this is the list of people, this is the goal for the room, da da da. But the question that comes up is like, how do you introduce yourself? Because some people say, don't use titles, or don't go into what you do, or find another way to break the ice. So what has worked for you to break through that ice, break through that noise, and get the ball rolling on, okay, this can be a connection?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that I tell them who I am. I probably don't lead with a title, but I do say who I work for and what we do. And then I never miss the opportunity. So what do you do? Because now I need to calibrate. Can you help me? Is this going to be a mutually beneficial arrangement? I sound like Music Soul Child. Or do I need to just move on also? Um, and so I'll say my name. I work for Ronstadt. Here's what we do. So what do you do? And then that person tells me, and if there's an opportunity where I can see how we can help each other, then I will
Further.
start with that conversation.
Mhm.
And don't be afraid to say, "Hey, would you like to grab coffee? I'd like to explore more some opportunities of how we might be able to work together and help one another." But
Wow.
I'm also one of those where even if it's not something that benefits Ronstadt, if I feel like there's a connection and maybe we could help each other by introducing, I may not be who they need, but I'd be like, "Well, I know someone. Her name's Tee Westbrook, and this is what she does. And I'd love to virtually introduce you all if you think it'd be helpful." So I try to do it both ways, and that, if there's an opportunity to help me professionally, that's great. If not, I'm always looking at opportunities where maybe I could connect them to someone who could help them.
You know, I want to reiterate that, because I think that's important as well. So we talked briefly about servant leadership, but also one of the biggest things that I believe in is that when I enter rooms, it's not about me, you know. So the biggest tip that I've given was, when you go into rooms, listen and try to make genuine connections, because like you said, it could be that professionally this isn't a match, but I may be able to connect you to someone else, or there are
Yeah.
other opportunities to work together. And I think a lot of times people go into rooms, or when they're networking, they are focused on, what can I get out of this? And that's just the wrong approach to take from my perspective. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think you're absolutely right, because I think people can sense very quickly whether you're being genuine and authentic or if you're just in it to gain something. And I will say there's, it's a lot of work to really network. People say, "Oh, everybody." I've had my boss to come to Nashville say, "I hate to go somewhere with you because you know everybody." But it didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of hard work to be in rooms and to introduce yourself to people and to get involved with different things and to raise your hand, because time is money. I'm married, I got 3 kids. And so, the time I give is time I'm taking away from something else. So to build your professional network, you do have to be strategic. You do have to be intentional. You do have to be consistent. And so it's a lot of hard work, but you want it to be genuine. You want it to be sincere. You want to be authentic with it. And today I'm just proud to say that I have a really strong network, but I'm always looking at how I can connect other people. And I love, love, love young people. So certainly anytime I can introduce them to someone that can help advance whatever it is they're trying to do, if it's not something I can do, then I'm always open to doing that. And I've had in the city of Nashville a few women who I've had the opportunity to see who do that really well. I think about Veronica Marable Johnson with the Nashville Chamber. I think about Joyce Searcy at Belmont. I think about Jackie Akbari with Worthington Advisories. They are amazing ladies who really reach out to try to connect people who may need to know each other from a business and professional standpoint.
So we have a couple more minutes left, but this conversation is good. So you see, it's gone over the 30-minute mark. But you made me think about, so the other question that I get a lot, because right now it's a stage of like millennials we're in the workforce, we're, a big part of the economy, and we're trying to make moves out here. But I usually hear a couple of things. One, it's hard to make new connections, especially if you're moving to a new place. Two, it's hard to connect with potential mentors or women like you who actually enjoy working with younger people. Because a lot of times it's the flip of that, especially with women. It's not always easy to make those connections and it be genuine or mutually beneficial. So do you have any advice for someone who is a woman who is either new to the area, who wants to make connections, or just wants to build their tribe in a way that it's not, that saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to leave the room.
You're in the wrong room, yeah.
You need to be in a different room. So do you have any advice for someone who is trying to take on a new level in their, not just professional career, but, in their life as a young woman?
Yeah, so I think it, and it ties back to networking, and I don't want to really wear that out, but the best mentor to get is someone you have some level of relationship with versus, just blindly calling somebody. And then I think you have to know what it is you need from that person and feel like, so usually when I've been contacted about, well, interested in if you'd be my mentor, my first question is, after I say, oh, I'm flattered, thank you, that's great to be considered, what is it you feel like you need from me? And there have been times when I ain't the right person for what they need. And I'm honest in telling them that. And I think also you have to consider, 9 times out of 10, you're probably reaching out to a very busy person. So we don't have time for the fluff. You got to be serious about it. You've got to do the work. You got to be on time. Because if I'm making time for you, you got to be on time. And what I have found to be most beneficial in mentor-mentee relationships I've had is just being a sounding board. A lot of times, you all know, you just need something to articulate and talk through. And what I found is a lot of times I just ask questions. And as the mentee is answering the questions and talking through it, they get where they need to be. It is not like I gave them this brilliant piece of advice. they already had it here. They just need to say it out loud. They needed to have the right questions for them to continue the thought process of where they need to be. And usually they get there. And so, if I had to boil it down, you got to know what you want. Hopefully you reach out to the right person who is the right person to help you with what that thing is. Ask for what you want, be consistent, be prepared, be on time.
Right. And those are things that you learn, as you matriculate through college or your professional career. But I think a lot of times we just I'm not gonna say young people. I'm just gonna say we don't always have it together in that way. So
well, if I can say this,
oh.
T, it doesn't matter what generation it is. They're just people who just don't have it together. I have found that with boomers, Xers, and all of
Really?
it. Oh, yeah.
Well, see, I usually get the impression that the boomers and the Xers have it together.
Well, keep in mind, I work in the people business, and we have 4 to 5 generations of people in the workplace right now. So I see it all.
Yeah.
So I think you guys get a bad rap sometimes, which is why I love being around young people. I feel like it helps me to continue to learn and grow. It's amazing. Just last night, we were at Fisk with the Rotaract Club, and we were doing some things. I'm the only one who knew how to airdrop a picture of my age group. I'm like, come on, y'all. But I probably learned that from a young person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know when we say loud, we ain't talking about noise or sound.
Oh my gosh. Look, she said, have you heard the saying you got motion yet?
I haven't heard that one yet.
So this is what the young people say. Like I said, this is what the young people, but this is what the young people say. They say you got motion if you are making moves out there in your career or in the world. So
okay. Well, I'll be using that somewhere during the Thanksgiving holidays when I'm around my kids.
Say I got motion. Okay, so last question, I think. Let's talk about do's and don'ts when it comes to building relationships. So, this social media age, and we've been through COVID. So, and the world is, I'm gonna be candid, the world to me is just a dark place right now. And I guess that's subjective because it's probably always been a dark place. But for me, with social media and the combination, is just like in your face every day. So I think, from my perspective, it feels like it's hard for people to make genuine connections and build relationships. Like they don't know where to start. So from your perspective, what are the top, let's say, 3 do's and don'ts of taking those first steps to build relationships locally in your community?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think the first do is you have to know who you are. All this code switching and all of that, I want like I'm not for everybody. And so and I don't do a lot of compromising in terms of who I am, in terms of my core values, right? So I think it's important that as you go through life's journey, you have to be grounded in who you are. I do think you have to surround yourself with a circle of trusted friends and advisors who will tell you your poop stinks. I've got some very close friends, like they are in my corner if I'm right, but they also will tell me if I'm not. And I have a soft heart for them and that I will listen, right? And then another do, you got to do the work. And doing the work, yeah, you got to do the work. Nothing in life worth having is going to just fall in your lap. Well, I haven't found that to be the case. I do think it still matters about being integrous and about being honest and about being ethical and just being a kind individual. The don'ts, I would say, is there are no shortcuts. At least I haven't found there to be any shortcuts. I don't think that trying to be someone you are not is, because it will eventually catch up. So I do think authenticity and genuineness are still important, even in this dark world we live in. And then another, am I on do's or don'ts?
You're on don'ts. So
Okay, another don't would be, um, I'd say don't think the world owes you anything or that have some sense of entitlement.
woo, say that again for the people in the back.
No, and even today, I hate to say it still, and I hope there comes a time for my grandchildren, grandchildren, we don't have to keep saying this, but as a Black person, and particularly as a Black female, we still have to work harder to accomplish, and be successful, and to do great things. I hope we'll get to a day where we can just work at the same level as everybody else and get the appropriate recognition, get the appropriate rewards, get the appropriate acknowledgments. But we haven't gotten to that place yet.
Right.
Unfortunately.
So those were all great tips. So let's close out with a final word from you, Dr. Laquita Stribling. What would you like to leave with these up and coming creators, aspiring dreamers, and women who have stories to tell?
Okay, give me just a minute to think about that.
Take your time.
Well, they say the world is your oyster, and I truly believe that. I am amazed by the innovation and the creativity and the drive and determination that I see from our young people now, and particularly who are taking paths that their parents or grandparents would not have dared to take. I think about, like me and my mom and my grandparents who we felt like we had to work a certain path and to get to retirement and color inside the lines, and everything had to fit in this neat little square box. And you guys are just blowing it up with doing the unthinkable. And I would just say, stay steadfast in that, believe in yourself. Also come together, because you need a support system. There's enough out there for everyone. And there's such power in collaboration. So I will say life's going to deal you some hard knocks. That's the way you learn and grow. I have never learned and grown from a place of comfort. There's always been this disruption, like this uneasiness, this discomfort. And on the other side is where I found that I had grown and learned and accomplished so much. And so I say, when you have a tough day or you get that no, or things look a little dim or bleak, just believe in yourself, keep grinding. I've never seen the formula of hard work and determination and perseverance not work. And it may not happen when you want it, but it will happen. And so I'm encouraged to see what our younger people continue to do. You guys think of things we've never even thought of. And I think it's just brilliant in the way you use your gifts and your talent and your skills and abilities. And in the end, the world will be a better place because of it. So I wish you all well.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm a little emotional baby, so I'm trying to hold it together, but it touched me. So I hope it touched whoever's listening and watching. So to close us out, is there anything upcoming that you would like to share as far as upcoming events or anything like that? Or you could just share your social media, where people can find you on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram.
Well, I'm on most of them. I'm not on Snap, and I'm on TikTok, but I just watch the reels. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Threads, I'm on LinkedIn. So I would love to engage with any of you who are interested in following me. And I would say, Nashville Cable has its Athena Awards coming up. It's where we really put the spotlight on women who are doing amazing things in the Nashville community. I think nominations are now open, so you can go to nashvillecable.org and check that out. And so we're really excited about that way of elevating what ladies and women are doing in the Nashville community. So that would be something I'm excited about that's coming up here soon.
Yay. All right. Well, thank you again for joining me, Dr. Stribling. Thank you all for tuning in into another hopefully good conversation, y'all. Tee Westbrook and Dr. Stribling signing out. Peace.
Bye, everybody.